What is happening, AJ Game Dude here, and I think this is probably the saddest Xbox news I think I've ever seen. We've talked about a lot of really bad situations with Xbox, having a really rough time, a rough patch, barely being, not being able to sell their consoles competitively, especially considering the PlayStation 5 is going on. But Xbox has also noticed that, developers are actually skipping their console, and so now they're actually openly asking, well, you're skipping Xbox, but why is that? And that's actually a fascinating question to ask, but also a very, very deeply troubling one at that. So let's actually talk about it. But before I do, just wanted to say, hey, if you like my videos, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps my videos to go out to more people on YouTube, and so if you similar stuff to that what you might be watching, and if you like and subscribe, then it'll also recommend the similar stuff like my videos to other people ultimately as well. Also, I do upload to Spotify as well, so I'll put a link to that in the description below if you prefer just more audio rather than any visual element. And on top of that, I do have my Patreon link in the description below, so if you want to toss a buck my way, you can absolutely do that, because this channel is completely unmonetized. But with all that being said, let's talk about why developers are skipping Xbox. Now, this article by Zach Swisen doesn't actually go into any real detail regarding why, but there is at least enough speculation to kind of go around considering what had happened. So, pretty much, the start is pretty accurate though. In 2024, when a new game is announced, you can usually count it to be released on PC, PlayStation, and possibly Switch, but it's become a bit less of a guarantee that new games or ports will land on Xbox consoles, and it seems Microsoft has actually become fairly aware of that, and that's probably the first step, is some level of self-awareness, so to speak. So stuff like Inotria was actually a very good example of that, launching on PS5 and PC, but not on Xbox, which the devs later explained was because of lack of communication with the Xbox platform ultimately as a whole, and therefore they weren't able to actually, weren't able to release their game on time. I don't know if that was actually resolved. Actually, no, it was resolved not long later, yeah. So that did in fact happen, yep. And so pretty much what's being asked here is, if you are making video games, we're interested in hearing from you. Dr. Deborah Henderson, a principal researcher from Xbox, said, if you aren't happy on Xbox, we'd love to know why. And honestly, if you're using our competitors' products, you could probably have a great perspective we can learn from. Xbox claims its strategy will allow it to gain fresh perspectives and avoid becoming an echo chamber. It's a bit like testing players who play games like yours. They are your target audience, and you want to hear fresh perspectives because their expectations may differ from folks who are deep in your community, Dr. Henderson said. So, it's interesting because this point is also quite accurate as well. Xbox shouldn't have to ask in the first place, so the actual kind of points that are being brought up, especially in this article, are lack of communication, which is kind of what happened with Inotria, Game Pass potentially training Xbox players to not buy games, which is absolutely true, because I think one of the more common sentiments that you hear from people on the Xbox side is, hey, why would I honestly ever want to buy this game when, hey, I can just wait for it to come to Game Pass? And even though games do come to Game Pass, and I would assume developers do get a handsome sum of money to allow the games to go over, but the problem then becomes, would you have made more money if the number of people who played your game through Game Pass would have been better off buying it? But then you come across the paradox with, well, if your game is priced at a particular price point, would you have been able to get that many players to begin with? So you find yourself in this sort of paradox as a whole, and I don't envy game developers for wanting to have to try and figure out this whole situation by themselves, especially when you're an indie dev. Now, there's also the aspect of low hardware sales, which absolutely is true. I think, if I remember right, PlayStations are definitely selling 2-to-1, but at some point, and I can't confirm whether or not this is the case, whether PlayStations actually sell 3-to-1 compared to the Xbox. 2-to-1 absolutely is the case. As for the 3-to-1, I'm not 100% on that. But they have definitely so less than half the number of PlayStations. But the thing is that PlayStation 5s aren't selling like hotcakes either, considering that PlayStation 4s have sold well over 100 million, and PlayStation 5 is not even close to cracking that number, to be completely honest. And with the release of the PlayStation 5 Pro, with an incredibly high price point, the lack of support for PSVR 2 and things like that, overall sentiment towards PlayStation isn't particularly good, and it's just surprising that Xbox was not able to capitalize on top of Sony's failings, even with, like, say, the failure of Concord. The success of Astrobot really just didn't manage to overcome that particular point either. So plenty of reasons to avoid Xbox and focus on Switch and or PS4/PS5, which also very weird about this generation is the fact that games are still multi-gen as opposed to just current gen. So it's past and current gen, and I don't think that stigma is actually going to be removed anytime soon. So it will be fascinating to see whether or not even the next gen, if the PS6 is going to have backwards compatibility with PS5, or if it's even going to be backwards compatible with PS4 even. And the same could probably be said for whatever the next Xbox is going to be. Is it also going to support Xbox One games and Xbox Series S/X games as well? Because that's just kind of becomes kind of weird with its overall messaging and advertising aspects. So many publishers have questioned why they should keep releasing games on Xbox due to their poor sales. So I'm sure Xbox is happy to reach out for devs for feedback, but it's a bad situation all around, and that Xbox should probably, have worked to avoid the whole situation in the first place. Ideally, maybe making themselves a tad bit more competitive and actually being able to do something about it. Unfortunately, they're more so at the mercy of Microsoft, especially with the money Microsoft is throwing around, and the fact that now they kind of owe money back to Microsoft because of the purchase of things like Activision Blizzard, for example. Also, it doesn't help, and I completely overlooked this in the actual article itself here. Doesn't help that devs have signaled that the weakest Series S might be holding some games back. And the games so far that we've seen this with are Baldur's Gate 3 with the split screen aspect of it. Also, there was rumors around Black Myth Wukong also being in a fairly similar position as well. Another game that is, at least as far as I know, not actually on Xbox whatsoever. And the fact that the developers of Gotham Knights said their Xbox Series S is like a potato as well. So there was that aspect of it as well. And the fact that Xbox has a policy that states you gotta have feature parity, which means features across both Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X have to be the same. But of course, that rule was broken with Baldur's Gate 3, because that was also one of the biggest games of its year and a Game of the Year contender that PlayStation just so happened to have exclusivity over Xbox because they did not have to worry about the game itself not running on a lower end piece of hardware. Now, there are rumors going around about Xbox's next gen plans, about how they're going to have a console and a handheld. And the handheld is supposed to compete with the PC, the portable PC market. However, that being said, it's going to be a question of whether or not games are actually going to be going through a similar type of multi-SKU positioning of games needing to run on both devices before it's allowed to release on Xbox potentially, which could also be kneecapping yourself in the exact same way. But with all that being said, those are just kind of the details that were actually being discussed in this article, and I thought it was actually quite interesting to kind of look at, talk about, but also reflect on. Definitely check out this Kotaku article by Zach Zweisen if you get a chance. But with all of that being said, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 300 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.